to another episode of the Analytical Innovations Podcast. I've got an exciting episode today. With me, I've got Josh Jones, the CEO of QuantHub. They are an AI-powered data literacy and upskilling platform used in K through 12 schools, universities, and corporations worldwide. Before QuantHub, Josh, you had founded and led a company called StrategyWise, where you're doing data science and AI consulting. That's right. Mm-hmm. And you worked really with large global brands like Samsung, Chick-fil-A, others. And so under your leadership, QuantHub has partnered with the state of Alabama to roll out a practical AI certificate to over 175 high schools. And that's just continuing to grow across the U.S. and Alabama. And I think you've really positioned yourself as a thought leader in the AI space and its impact on jobs, education, and the future of work. And I think I saw you were at the Space Center recently for their AI symposium, or is that coming up still?
Yeah, I was there last January,
okay.
And we've got another one in a week or two, I believe.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I was there last January as well. I wasn't able to stay for the full time spectrum that was there. It's a neat symposium that they have up there for sure.
Yeah, great group of people. I always enjoy. You never know who you're going to meet. I mean, they really do pull a broad audience of really forward-thinking innovators, thought leaders. This year, of course, the theme is agentic AI. So I'm certainly looking forward to not only giving a talk there, but hearing a number of the other talks as well.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. All right. So AI and data literacy, I think for most people, the concept of literacy in terms of just being able to read makes sense. What does AI literacy or data literacy mean to you and to QuantHub?
You know, I think one of the challenges in our industry is everything is changing so much. That includes some of the terminology and some of the keywords and buzzwords. And I think the common thread is the word literacy, or really just this idea that you have the basic understanding. And quite honestly, you know, Davos is this week. We're looking at the World Economic Forum. Every year they do a Future of Jobs report. Mm-hmm. They talk about what are some of the key skills that employers are hiring for. The last couple of years have been calling it tech literacy. And I think that's a pretty reasonable, broader umbrella. But if you think really over the last, call it 20 to 30 years, technology in various forms and fashions have really been changing the way that business operates. Back to the fax machine, think about how email has impacted business. And of course, now AI is the hot topic. You rewind 5-10 years ago, you had, Hadoop had its day. You've got big data, you've got dashboards, and, crypto, of course, has taken a big place. But within all of that, the average person probably isn't keeping up with all of the technical nuances, and everyone gets excited. Everyone wants to talk about it. So there's this hype cycle, and the average person just needs to know how to navigate that. Like what's real, what's changing my life as an individual, as someone in the workforce. What are the skills that I need to know? What are the tools that in say the next 12, 24 months, I need to get on this train because this is real, versus no, this is just the next, the technology du jour. So when we talk about data literacy, we're really talking about understanding how data impacts the world around you, how you can be an analytical thinker, how you can use data to make better decisions. And then, of course, AI literacy goes into understanding generative AI. What are the different tools? How do I use it ethically? How do I use it effectively? How is it impacting the world and the workforce around me, and so forth?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that makes sense. So if we were to take like a specific example of, I guess, since we're talking education, college student, what differentiates a college student that's using ChatGPT maybe to help them look up some things versus the AI literate college student peer?
Yeah, so a couple different categories. First of all, we all talk about ChatGPT, just like we don't say we search the web, we say we Google something, right? Just because it's the predominant. There are a number of different vendors on the market. Most people have heard of Anthropic's Claude. You've got Grok and Gemini and so forth. So understanding each one of those, if you look at things like just broad benchmarks, some of them exceed in certain areas where they fail in others. So for example, Microsoft's Copilot, not necessarily the best large language model, but from a corporate standpoint, it gives corporations the security and safety and stability they need, especially in industries like yours where you've got heavy regulation, security issues. And so a corporation might pick a model that doesn't necessarily beat all the benchmarks, but it ticks other boxes. In the same way, if you're working for a small startup, maybe you just need whichever model is going to give you the most output for that particular task or skill. And then, of course, understanding that it's not just ChatGPT. There are image creation tools, there's audio creation tools, there's video, there are a lot of different tools and technologies all happening at the same time. So understanding how to navigate that tool landscape, understanding the ethics and the security implications. If I'm working in an organization, say with financial or personally identifiable information, I need to know that I can't just upload that to a free version of some large language model because I'm essentially giving away customer data to a third party. So understanding some of those ethics, security implications, things like that go into it. And also really being able to see where things are going. And so this ability to learn and to think critically, I would say, is actually one of the top AI literacy skills, even though it's not really typing on the keyboard, but understanding how to step back and say, what are the tools at my disposal? How do I use them in an effective way? And how is industry changing over time?
Yeah. I mean, really to be able to step back and look at, okay, what am I giving this tool? What are the inputs? What are the outputs? What is it connected to? And what could that potentially mean above and beyond just that short-term hit of success that you might get from using the tool?
And actually, you use a very important word there, thinking about outputs. So one of the other things is just critical evaluation. So can I trust this model? And at what level can I trust this model? So because the models are meant to sound confident, we tend to just assume they know what they're talking about. In some areas, they're pretty good. If we're asking about Greco-Roman history or something like that, you probably are right on the money. If you're asking, say, to teach you some recent AI tool or skill, that's one area where it's not that great. And the reason is because some of the models you're using were trained 3-6 months ago. This is a new tool that just was launched. Sure, they can search the web and gather data, but we all know searching the web, you're going to get a lot of hype, a lot of misinformation. And so thinking about how in one category, it's 98% accurate, another category, it may be 68% accurate. So understanding how to think about those outcomes, evaluate those, and know, what, in this area, I'm always going to double, triple check whatever it gives me, whereas this area, this area over here, maybe a single check is good enough to move along.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. So, so you've also touched on ethics and students using this. So I think the first thing that comes to a lot of people's minds is the ethics of how do I use this as a learning companion versus as a cheating tool? How do you see that being managed in the learning process?
So there's this idea of desirable difficulty, and our brain forms these pathways when we struggle with concepts and ideas versus things that are just handed to us. And I think what educators are worried about, it's not so much the cheating, hey, we've got a bunch of dishonest students out there. That's really not the case. It's more of the edge case. What they're worried about is they use these shortcuts and they're not going to learn those core muscle memories or those capacities. When you and I were growing up, our teachers would tell us you got to learn long division because you're not going to be walking around with a calculator in your pocket.
Yeah.
Well, we are now, with the iPhone. So it's kind of like, well, were they wrong? Can we apply that same thing to AI today? And I would suggest the core skills that students need to learn, regardless of legitimate fast-forward moments where AI can solve problems for us, they need to learn to really start with a blank slate, to generate new ideas. Because if you look at employers that are AI forward, the skills that they're looking for are systems thinking, being able to think critically, being able to see the entire organization strategically and so forth. And so building those core skills, I think, is a fundamental thing that we need students to understand, that we don't want them to fast forward in that process.
Yeah. So it sounds like part of what you're saying, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it sounds like on some level the most valuable skills that you need to work with AI aren't really AI skills specifically so much as critical thinking skills.
I think for 99% of the population, that's fair. And take one example, prompt engineering.
Sure.
So everybody's like, okay, that's the new skill. Everybody needs to learn prompt engineering. But it's kind of like, well, maybe, but now can I not just ask AI to write my prompt for me?
Yeah.
And so even that skill is one of those things that I think it's changing very fast. And the game changer we're seeing with AI that we haven't seen with previous technologies is the ability to interact through natural language.
Yeah.
And so it eliminates those years of having to learn Python or whatever the language may be. And so it creates this playing field where anyone can kind of step up to the plate and have an easy mode, if you will. So back to kind of what we were saying before, the skills that are really becoming, again, there is that 0.1%. We need data scientists that understand machine learning and can go deep into the tech stack. But for the vast majority of the workforce that we're training, it really is back to those more the soft skills, the thinking skills. But again, you have to understand the system that you're approaching in order to make decisions around it.
Yeah. This whole discussion reminds me of the paper that came out that said that ChatGPT users just use less of their brain while they're doing stuff, or their critical thinking is degrading. I think of everybody that I've talked to, you're in a unique position to actually have a really good opinion on whether or not that's true. And so I guess my question to you is, do these tools, the LLMs that can augment our performance, do they really degrade our human critical thinking? Or is that really just a niche case of users that end up in that spot? Or how do you see that division playing out?
So if you go back from an educational perspective and you think about desirable difficulty, if we make something too difficult for the learner, they'll try, they'll get frustrated, they'll quit, they'll move along.
Yeah.
If you make it too easy, they won't form those neural pathways they need to actually develop, retain long-term understanding. So that desirable difficulty is in the middle, where they have the ability to solve the problem, but it's not being immediately handed to them. And so what we do, for example, in our really K-12 higher education and some into corporate as well, one of the modules on QuantHub that we encourage educators to use, we call it AI as your learning partner. And so we teach students really from day one how to use AI as a Socratic partner. So instead of, hey, write my essay for me, it's, hey, ask me questions so that I can think about this from a critical standpoint. Let's go back and forth in dialogue. Let's dig deep into this. And so the student is using AI really as a tool, no different than you would say have a friend or colleague sort of challenging you on ideas, checking your thinking. And so what we want to do is put that student in that place where they understand that it can help them fast forward things. For example, let's say you're in higher ed and you want to write a research paper and you've got 600 different sources you want to go through. That's a great place to use AI to help you find that needle in a haystack. But then when it comes to synthesizing, building that thesis, writing the actual materials, that's where you want to step back and say, I'm going to use my brain to do this. Along the way, I may use AI as a challenger or someone to help me think around the edges or add or take away or that sort of thing. But again, it's going to be me building that really that common thread through line, if you will.
Yeah. No, I like that. It's a really, I don't know if it's subtle or not so subtle, but it's that paradigm shift of, am I offloading work to this, or am I using this tool to help me in my work?
Yep, that's it. It's about leverage.
Yeah, and it goes back to that, good old statement, give me a good place to stand and a big enough lever and I can move the world. I think these tools really help enable a lot that wasn't really possible before. But it's I like that paradigm shift for sure. What would you think? What do you think people misunderstand the most about AI and data literacy?
The most common misconception is that people say that AI is going to take my job.
Mm-hmm.
AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI is going to take your job.
Sure.
As the saying goes. And really, the concept there is that AI is it's a multiplier when used well. And those individuals who learn how to use it, increase their productivity, can do more. And it really changes the table stakes as we move forward. As you think of the various industries, more and more you're going to see AI-related skills being used. We're going to see faster change than we've seen in prior decades. And part of that is because the exponential growth in processing power of chips. You see exponential growth in the amount of data out there, exponential decrease in the cost to analyze that data. You see what we're seeing with robotics. This is going to be a big year for robotics.
Yeah, with the world models and all that stuff sort of coming out. Yeah,
exactly. And many of these early stage robots that you're seeing, think of those a lot like Tesla in 2017, plus
Sure.
or minus. It's like you don't want to necessarily use it for full self-driving. I don't want one, emptying my dishwasher anytime soon. But they're an excuse to gather data and build better models and give it enough time. But so you combine all of those driving trends together. And we really believe that the pace of change is quickening. It's not a linear curve, it's an exponential curve. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, just understanding how to, I would say surf that wave or understand what that looks like is going to be critical. And so this whole idea of you're not going to be replaced by AI, but someone using AI, people who leverage those tools are just going to be more competitive in the workforce.
Sure. What would you say to somebody that might be in a role in a company like mine that is a fairly secure environment, and they don't want to be sharing company data to these tools and that sort of stuff? Is there anything that you would say to either help assuage fears around the use of those tools, or any recommendations that you would have?
It's when we forecast the growth of AI capabilities in the 26 and 27 and beyond, I think the cursory glance is, it's going to take all this energy, we need more data centers, and it's all of this we're just going to use more and more energy. But one of the things that we learned with DeepSeek, and we've seen with other models that come out, is that it's really a fraction. There's a numerator denominator. And so while improvement may not always come from the top, it may come from reducing the demands. And so look for more models that work well on the edge on locally hosted computers or in your own secure cloud environment.
Yeah, I mean, I can run a GPT, OSS, the 20 billion parameter model will run on my laptop these days. So you have access to quite a bit of power, even locally a lot of times.
Yeah, and so really it depends on what industry you're in and what your applications are. ChatGPT is essentially trying to be a one-size-fits-all model that it can do anything and everything in the world. You may need a model that really just focuses on this one technology, and so your ability to really find something and then tune it and then really tweak that, I think, is going to be really exciting in the next couple of years.
Yeah. All right. Had a question enter my mind from left field, so I just want to get your read on it. There's in the creative world and the media consumption world, there's a lot of what people are calling AI slop today. On the one hand, you could see that as marketers ruin everything, but on the other hand, there may be some positive benefits to that. Like you said, somebody using AI is going to take your job as a musician. Somebody using AI music generation tools is going to have a faster pipeline to get out their next single. As a graphic artist, somebody using AI tools is going to be able to go through more iterations more quickly. What's kind of your thoughts on the AI slop problem, as it were, if there is one, in your opinion, and how it looks like there in general culture?
I think it's definitely a problem, but to me, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. And think about this. I don't know, I'm just going to assume that I'm like many people. I don't know that in the last 3 or 4 years, I've noticed more spam email than I had, say, the prior 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. It feels like it's been about the same. And surely there are more people spamming, and there's now with generative AI, there's more ways to create these things. But this is just anecdotally, but looking at my Microsoft Outlook on any given day, there's a lot of spam, don't get me wrong, but my filters are catching more and more of that.
Better.
Yeah, so there's the like firewall level, this is not getting in the organization, but then there's also within Outlook, there's the junk folder and there's the other folder and the non-focused or whatever they call it. And so I'm not saying that email spam is getting less than it has before, but using that as an example, there's sort of this two-sided, okay, they're bad actors who are creating more of that slop, but then there are also going to be more tools that are helping us navigate that. Mm-hmm. And so as a free market capitalist, to me, it just sounds like there are business opportunities. Whenever there's a problem, there's also opportunities. You talk about security and things like that. So what are the opportunities to help people? So I would suggest that we'll see more and more new ways of, as more data just gets thrown at us, there will be new tools to help us navigate that, filter out the things that we don't want to see. And again, not saying it's desirable, not saying it's something that I'm happy about, but I think it's a problem we'll get through.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I like the email spam filter as an analogy for that, because I mean the media consumption algorithms are over time going to find out what sort of AI slop people like versus for the kinds that they don't. Mm-hmm. I often think about part of the reason why we as humans probably like a lot of what may be considered to be a AI slop is because it lets us see into somebody else's imagination. And so while writ large it may be concerning on specific cases, the reason it's cool to see the cat in a top hat is because it let us see somebody else's imagination where they were thinking about that.
If I can give a plug for the Birmingham Museum of Art, we have this new exhibit that's going to, in a couple of weeks here, run January through May, Monet to Matisse. Mm-hmm. And it's talking about the Impressionist movement. And for those art fans out there, one of the interesting things about the Impressionist movement is that they really changed what it meant to be art. Mm. And for centuries, art was all about, telling biblical stories and history or, different ancient gods or things like that. It was very, very dark, very historical, very somber. And the Impressionist movement really turned all that on their heads. And if you look at the history of, from Pissarro onward, there was the traditional art institute school saying what you're doing is not art. Mm-hmm. And there was sort of this rejection. No, this is slop. They were essentially saying in the 1800s, what you're doing doesn't count. If you look at the folks, recently we've had news about AI created songs that hit the Billboard Top 100 and things like that. There's the artist community saying, no, that's not art. That doesn't count. I would suggest we're seeing a centuries-old debate around what is authentic art, what is authentic entertainment. Because those songs, they're not just hitting a button. The people that are creating those AI-driven songs, they're spending hundreds of hours crafting, tuning.
It takes a lot more. I've played around with some of the music tools in particular, and if you just ask an LLM to write you a prompt to plug in there, it gets real monotonous real fast. If you want something that's going to genuinely hit, it takes a good bit of effort. And I like kind of what you're saying. Really, it's a move of the goalpost of creativity. Like, where is the creativity now? Where are we spending that effort? And in some cases, like with music, it enables the common user to have more or less professional level production on a creative thought that they had. and certainly there's folks that use it negatively to just copy small indie bands and then steal their audience. But I think in the best case scenarios, it's like you said, it's folks that are really spending a lot of time in a creative endeavor that just wasn't available before.
Yeah, if you want to remove all computers from music to make it authentic, we've got to go back to the 80s and rip out all the synthesizers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a guitar pedal that uses AI to capture the sound of amps so that I can have the sound of a 60-year-old tube amplifier, but I can carry it anywhere with me and the tubes aren't going to die. So yeah, it's where you draw that line gets real fuzzy real fast, if you want to remove all the computers, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. So I had one more question as a parent that's really been itching at me since I knew that I was going to be able to talk to you, which is, as a parent, I'm always trying to balance, find this balance between giving my children access to technology so that they will be literate, but also protecting them from the negative impacts of that technology as well, and so how do you draw that line? What sort of recommendations would you have for people that are trying to encourage that technical literacy without throwing kids that can't navigate it by themselves just straight into the deep end of the pool?
Yeah, so going back to that whole idea of what are the guardrails around using AI as a thought partner, as a research assistant, or as a for my kids, I've got kids in middle, high, and university, using it to create quizzes, using it as a study aid. And so I think a lot of it is really just demonstrating by example. When they ask you to help you with their homework, for example, what are some legitimate ways to use? And usually it starts with saying, what has your teacher said about AI? What's fair and what's not? And I will say, that's one of the neat parts of this journey at QuantHub. If I could kind of digress for a minute about our work with K-12 in the state of Alabama. We met with Dr. Eric Mackey, the state superintendent, about 4 years ago now. And we were doing work. Our customers are everyone from Blue Cross and Blue Shield to McKinsey to Southern Company to Voya Financial, doing a lot of larger corporate work. And he's looking at the state saying, how do I really help kids with math scores? How do I help prepare them for the jobs of tomorrow? And we were having this conversation, and I said, I bet that there's some nuance in the weeds around how we get this into schools. But I think there's an opportunity for us to adapt our platform to get it into 8th graders' hands, 9th graders' hands, and into high school and so forth. And so we started a journey working with the State Department of Education. Early days, just piloting with a handful of schools. 4 schools went to 16. 16 went to where we are today, where we're in about 200 schools across the state.
Okay, wow.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how far ahead of the game Alabama is compared to the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. And we just assume that surely we're in 50th place.
Yeah.
We're actually a national leader when it comes to providing early access to data literacy, to AI literacy. We've been doing this for 4 years now. We helped, for example, write the standards for a full year of applied data science. So in the state of Alabama, a student can take a data science course as a math course. And this has been available for a couple of years now. And there are only, a handful of states that are doing this. So we've been really just impressed and proud of our state and State Department of Education for really stepping out early and often to say, let's get this into the hands of every kid. We've trained thousands of teachers now, so we have professional development credit teachers can get for going through our platform, as well as principals. So now we have AI for administrators, and it's basically available to any school in the state that wants it. There's no additional charge to them. They just call our team, and we get them set up. And we have tens of thousands of students learning on the platform, going back to what you're talking about. And so really back to this whole question of how do we get it in their hands. One of the challenges, whether that's K-12 or higher ed, is they're designed to move really slow. Mm-hmm. So how do we think, build a committee to build a committee, We revamp everything every 5 to 10 years. And we're in a world now where we need to be revamping things 6 months, a year out. How do you do both? How do you methodically revamp your educational curriculum while also adapting to industry? And so what we've done, the modules that we present as curriculum are very bite-sized, micro-learning. A typical skill takes about an hour to master. And so we've essentially looked at all of the state courses from math, science, you think about your SAT or ACT scores, and students, teachers can use QuantHub in their classroom. In 10th grade, say chemistry, for example, you're learning how to build hypotheses, how to chart things in a graph, how to do data storytelling.
Sure.
Those are all building blocks for data science.
Yep.
And so it's been really neat to see students mastering those, and in many cases saying, hey, this is really neat. I want to go into a career in this field.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic, because the thing that's not changing is the sheer volume of data. Like, the tools to handle it might be, but you also, I think I heard you say in one of your other interviews you had recently, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you're asking the wrong question, you're going to get the wrong answer. And so it's important to not just know how to put your prompts in, but also to know, have some thoughts about what that data should look like, and how the charts, the interpretations you want to have come out look like as well.
Speaking about garbage in, garbage out in this field of data quality, this is a giant that many people are not aware exists, and it's a real challenge. We saw this 10, 15 years ago in data science. You go into an organization and you build some really smart data science model that predicts something like consumer behavior or traffic or whatever, and then all of a sudden you realize that, the call center has not been putting in the actual Social Security number like they're supposed to. They're just putting in 9999 because we don't use it right now. We don't need it, whatever. It's quicker. Like you go all the way to sort of what I would say, like the steel-toed boots and the folks wearing the hard hats in the front lines. They're going to do whatever allows them to get their job done the easiest, the fastest. And in many cases, they're not thinking about data quality. And that is something that is still going to hurt organizations today. If they go try and use AI, they deploy AI, the formula may be right, but if it's relying on bad data, then you basically have a very confident wrong formula. And so that's something that you need to understand no matter where you are in life, is just what is the quality of data that I'm drawing from here? And that goes back to why we wanted data literacy in the first place. These organizations spending millions, billions, we're seeing, 10 years ago, I think data science projects were failing at like 80%, 85% of enterprise projects were failing. And the number one reason for failed data science projects was data quality.
Yeah. I believe it. Well, Josh, thank you so much for spending time with me on the podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If people want to find out more about you and about QuantHub, what's the best place to do that? Is that QuantHub.com? I know you also have, is it JoshuaJones.com as well, or what's the URL?
Joshua N. Jones. That's just for my public speaking related information. But QuantHub.com is a great place to check out what we're doing. We have a weekly newsletter that goes out, and we've got a lot of great stuff in there. So if folks want to follow along, either that or following us on LinkedIn.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks for having me.